Hey, this is Megan with Stickit Designs. Thanks for sticking with me through the Patriotic tutorials. This is the final design for this series, but still be sure to subscribe because I'll have more fun designs coming out soon. And if you have a request for a specific design, leave me a comment below and then stay tuned to see if your idea is one of the next releases. Before we begin, let's take a look. This is going to be the Daniel Stars and Stripes design, and this is going to show what our final design should be very similar to. Okay, back over at our work screen, you're going to see the only thing I'm starting with this time is a star that I actually copy and pasted from one of the other work pages from the first two tutorials. All I did to get this was went to Google, found the image, and then copy and pasted, traced it here. Okay, so I'm just going to use Daniel's name again. I'm using an Arial black font that should be pretty standard to just about any computer. And then I want to resize this. My grid is set so that each large square equals 1 inch. So right now, for some reason, whenever I swapped computers, it started adding in this extra space around my font. So on the left-hand side, when it's showing 6 inches, it's showing all of this space, even that blank space. So for me to get an idea of what my actual design size is, I'll just count those large squares. So right now I'm at 1, 2, 3 inches. I want to go to about 4. There we go. And then we can do the same thing whenever we count across. Now if you might not have this space, that blank space around your font on your computer. If you do have it and you want to see what your actual size is, you can come over to your edit points and then simplify, and it's going to bring that measurement in tight around the design itself. And I can see once it's all highlighted that I was just under 4 inches. And I'm not quite at 9 inches, which is going to work because this is going on my 3-year-old nephew's shirt, so we don't want it to be too large for his size. Okay, so now we're going to work on the stripes design. I'm going to highlight just the letters that I want striped, and I'm going to come over to my fill pattern. Now you can use the same method that we used in the first two tutorials where you just created your own rectangles, made the stripes where you preferred them. But when I was playing around with this design, I found this fill pattern and it put these stripes in for me. And the reason I like these stripes is that you can tell on the I and the L, they're a little bit off from the rest of the design, and I really like that break once it finally goes on the t-shirt. So you have the choice. You can follow this tutorial and see how I get these rectangles to go in place, or you can use the other method. And I'm also going to show how to offset after we get to these rectangles. Create that outside border. Because whenever you use a fill pattern, like if I were to put in these cool little diamond patterns over here, whatever you put from a fill pattern is not going to cut on your silhouette. Instead, this is something that's going to be for a print option. So just because we have these rectangles here, if we were to send it to the cutter right now, it's not going to create these for you. So we are going to still have to use some tracing and some the subtract method. And then my D over here is just going to be blue for now. Change my line color. Okay. Now if I were to come right click and to make this a compound path right now, it would actually change the stripes somewhat, and I don't want to do that. I like having these laid out exactly where they are. But I'm going to have to work with each individual letter. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. Oh, it's still filled with our design. That's fine. I'm going to grab this, come back to the fill, and I'm just going to fill that in with white. And I want to resize this until it fills in where the white stripe is on the design. And I want to right click, copy, and paste. And do that for each of the stripes. I'm going to subtract these white lines in each of the letters because I like, just my preference, I like for my letters to start off with what's going to be the red. And fill that in. Okay, I'm going to select my letter, highlight all of my rectangles, come over to my modify button, and then I'm going to subtract. And it's just going to leave me with these stripes. Highlight your A. I'm going to right click, group it together so that it doesn't get out of order, and then I want to fill it in with the red. We'll just set that off to the side. Okay, and then we're going to make rectangles for each one of these letters. I don't know why my fill is staying over on this pattern. Let's turn that off, come back to the grid. Select this, turn it white. There we go. Okay, same thing for each letter. You can see the reason that I have to do this for each one is if I were to stretch this out right now, it's going to get off on the I. It's not going to align all the way through the word like it did in our other designs. If you want to keep them lined up, then you can kind of skip this portion and just drag those rectangles all the way through. Highlight, come over to modify, and subtract. Select all, fill with red, and make sure it's grouped together. It's okay that down here these are not all going to line up perfectly because once we get up here to create our outline, it's going to fix it for us. And then continue this method all the way through for each of your letters. Select all, come to modify, and subtract. Group it together, fill it with red, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the L also. So these stripes are just a little bit longer. Okay, so let's select our E, modify, subtract, group it together, fill with red, and then the L, subtract, fill with red, and group together. Okay, so we'll come back to our stripes in just a moment. Let's jump back up to the top. And I'm going to show you how to create the outline that's going to go around each of our stripes. You want to select the entire word, and now we want to make this a compound path so that it's all joined together again. You see on this, once I put it in the compound path, it did align each of my stripes. If you wanted to do that, and you wanted to keep your stripes aligned, then you could have just copy paste and then subtracted one time all the way through. But I like these that are a little offset. Now, to make an outline around a word, you're going to use your offset tool. It should be the fifth one in with the arrow pointing out. You need to highlight the area that you want to trace, or have that have the letters traced, and then you want to offset. You can see now it's putting a background around each of the letters. But I don't care for the A touching over here and then for each of the letters that are so close. So we're going to come to our distance and we're going to bring that down so that it's a tighter outline around. This is also called trapping a letter. And I'm going to bring mine to about 0.08. So now everything's separated, but I still have a nice border around each letter. And then you want to click apply. Okay, we're not quite done yet. If I were to come in right now and move that top portion, it's just created a background. And that still hasn't created the outline for us. To create the outline, you need to select your offset and your top layer. Just highlight everything there. Right click and then make this a compound path. And you can see how the pattern now jumped to that outside border. So if we were to send this to cut right now, it's going to cut that outside for us. I can fill it in with red. Okay. And now we're just going to come down here to each letter. Remember, these should be grouped together, so whenever I drag, it's just going to bring those stripes, and I'm going to pull it in until it fits just right. Make sure that there's not a lot of white showing around these edges. There we go. Okay, so now we have our stripes inside our letters. Select all of this together. We want to weld anything that's touching for us. Let me undo this. I'm seeing that my A is off just a little bit. See that tiny white line? I want to bring it up so that I don't see that. Okay. Let's try that again. Select it. Then right click. Oops, I forgot to weld. Now it's selected, right click, weld it together, and now we can make it a compound path. Did you see before it popped in a white line here since I didn't do the weld, but now it's all aligned as it should be. Okay, so my D is looking a little skinny over here now that I've added a border for the rest of the design. You could go through the trouble of offsetting and adding in the border, or you could just click this right here, drag it out a little bit until it looks similar to the rest of it, so it's a little bit bigger. All right, now we're going to put our stars into the D. So we want to right click on that star, copy and paste. We want to go ahead and copy a few of them so that we have all that we need to work with. grab my star. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to fill these in with a white background so that when I do add them over to the D, I can see where they are. You just want to scatter these around. Oh, see, this is the original star that I brought over to copy and paste. And because it was here first, that means it's the furthest back in the layer. And right now it's going behind my D. So whenever I go to subtract and cut all of this, it wouldn't cut correctly. So to bring this to the front, we want to right click, bring to front. And there we go. Now we can see it. It's now the top layer. Okay. Now if you want to make sure these are all aligned that are here in this straight line, you can select that top star, hold down your shift key and select your other stars. Come over to your alignment tool. You want to align to the center, and then I also want to space vertically to make sure they're spread out just right. And these that are over here in the curves, you just get to eyeball those and make sure they're where you want them to go. Okay. I'm going to select the D, make sure all of my stars are highlighted, don't get over to the A. And then come to my modify button and subtract. Alright, so now we are ready to cut. Our design is in place, the stripes are right where I want them to be. I'm going to cut on a heat transfer material. So I want to select all, then right click and flip horizontally, because whenever you cut with HTV, the shiny side goes down. You're cutting on the back of that material. When I come over to my cut screen, this is very important. I'm going to go ahead and show you what your stripes are going to look like. I don't want my D to cut yet because it's going to be on a different color. But let's look closely at our stripes. Anywhere that you see that pale red line, your machine is going to cut. So you might be like me the first time I cut this and panic thinking, oh my goodness, it's going to put a cut in this area. As long as your white area is cut all the way around, these other stripes really don't matter. Yes, a cut is going to go there, but after the cut is finished and you start to weed out, you're just going to pull out where the white stripes would be, and then whenever you put this on a t-shirt or whatever it is that you're going to put it on, and you add heat to it, even though there is a cut there from your machine, it shouldn't show up because it's still going to weld together from the heat that goes onto your design. Mine turned out fine. I had a couple of these on the first time I cut, and you can't even tell that they're there. So don't panic when you see that it is going to cut through some of your stripes and your border. Your heat's going to make that all stay in place. Just be careful and only weed out where the white spaces should be. Okay, so when I have this highlighted, I'm going to cut on my material type. Mine is a heat transfer material that is smooth. My speed, I keep it on a 2 most of the time, and my thickness for this material, I'm going to use a 4. And then I want to send it to my silhouette. Once the cut is finished, I'm going to highlight the design, and I want to bring my D over to the edge so that I'm not wasting much material. And just because this A is still barely on the cut pattern, you are going to have to select this. Let me scroll back up to my cut conditions and change my cut style to no cut on the striped area. Then select the D, and we want to cut here. My settings are going to stay the same. It's still a heat transfer material. My speed is on 2, thickness is on 4, and then I'm going to send it to my silhouette. And there we have it. Design 3 is now complete, and I'm sure yours looks great. If you ever have a question or comment about any tutorial, you can always leave a post below and I'll do my best to help you out. Before you leave this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to it, and leave a comment.